So this is what Alabama looks like. Fucking beautiful. Absolutely. Hey, I want you to know this. Alabama has long inspired Texas, long inspired the country. We have a profoundly powerful relationship. I'll touch on this a little bit more, but I want you to know that this was the easiest yes I ever decided when the students at the University of Alabama reached out to me. Tell you, we are going to be there. Because if you think about it, too many people in this country who understand full well the threat that Donald Trump poses to us individually, to our families, to our community, to our Constitution, to our very country, they're stunned, or they're waiting, or they're hoping some cavalry is going to ride to the rescue, or they're anticipating orders from headquarters or Washington, D.C. The students at the University of Alabama took action themselves, the future into their own hands, and they brought us together, and that's the leadership that we need right now. Are you with me on this? Well done. I mean, just look at what the president is doing to this state. Cutting education funding in a state that ranks near the bottom right now in terms of resources to educate our kids and the future generation. He's cutting Medicaid in a state where it's already harder to see a doctor than almost any other state in the union today. For those Alabamians who put their lives on the line for this country, signed a blank check, allowed us to send them halfway a world to take the lives of others and to risk their life in the process. He's cutting 83,000 jobs at the VA right now, most of them veterans. And that's going to hurt the people of Alabama. And then here we are, in the cradle of American democracy, Alabama. And they're making it ever harder for our fellow Americans to cast a ballot. That voter suppression, that voter intimidation, not just an insult to you, but this democracy and everyone who has suffered and served and struggled to realize that it would be one person and one vote in America. So my hat is off to each and every single one of you who have shown up today, because it is so easy to be tempted by despair, to be depressed and distraught, but instead you chose to stand up and be counted at this defining moment of truth. And then, as if we needed to add insult to injury, on your big day, you seniors here at the University of Alabama, when it should be all about you and the hard work and the effort and the success that you have earned, this jackass is trying to make it all about him, his ego, imposing himself on this community and these students. We cannot have it. And I tell you what, it is by design. He wants us to feel hopeless. He wants us to believe that he has all the power. But let me tell you this. In this country, in this great democracy, in this government of, by, and for the people, the real power is with us, with you, with me, every single person who comes here today. And it's going to take all of us. The biggest, broadest possible coalition of Americans. So let me say this. If you're a Republican, if you voted for Donald Trump in the last election, you are welcomed here, and we're glad that you came. If you're a Democrat, and you know that we can do something better, and you're sick and tired of our national party focusing on the blue wall states half a world away when the real fight is here in Alabama, I am glad that you are here as well. Independents, voters, non-voters, no me importa. All that matters now is that we're Americans and human beings, and we treat one another that way. You with me? No, the power is with us. And some can be forgiven for wondering whether our protest today holds any meaning or whether it offers any hope against the power wielded by the president and his majorities in Congress and the Supreme Court and the oligarchs and literally the richest man on the planet. Who are we? Who are we, you may ask yourself, against all of that? I'll tell you what.
We are the people!
We are the people. We have the power. We are, hear me on this, we are the last and the best hope for this country, just as this country remains the last and the best hope for this earth. What we do right now, at this moment of truth for America, will forever define our future, our fate, and our fortune as a country. So, Alabama, no pressure, but we cannot fuck this one up. Are you with me on that? We gotta come through. We cannot be found wanting. Not now. We have the power to overcome. And listen, I know it because I believe in you, I believe in us, and I believe in people. And I also know this. We can overcome these challenges because we have overcome them before against much greater odds. It is who we are. We are made of overcoming. It is our history. It is our story. It is what has made us the greatest planet, the greatest country on the face of the planet today. Let me give you a story that starts right here in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, in fact. After nearly 90 years of Jim Crow in America after the end of Reconstruction, it was ordinary people, just like those who have assembled today, who chose to take power into their own hands. They did not wait for elected leaders to get the job done. They decided they would do it themselves. 1964, Bloody Tuesday, right here in Tuscaloosa. People beaten nearly to death, just wanting to be treated like a man or a woman under the Constitution with the rights and freedoms that they should be able to enjoy. It was their courage of their convictions that pushed this country finally to sign the Civil Rights Act into law that very year, ending Jim Crow in America. But at the end of 64, you all may know this story. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Andrew Young met with President Johnson in the White House. And they said, Mr. President, we will forever owe you a debt of gratitude for what you have made possible with civil rights. But with all due respect, now we would like to vote. When you look at Alabama, Mr. President, there are counties and communities like Selma where the majority of the population is black, where there's not a single black voter on the rolls. Mr. President, you may say we are a democracy, but we're a democracy in name only. And Johnson turns to King and he says, Dr. King, you are right, and I want to be with you, but I used everything I had to pass civil rights. I simply don't have the power to get this done. As they left the White House, a dejected Young turns to King and says, well, what do we do now? And King turns to Young and he says, we go out there and we get this man some power. Over the coming days and weeks and months, everyday Americans, just like us, we protested just like we're doing today. We took to the State House and the courthouse steps. We lit up the switchboard on Capitol Hill. We wrote to the president demanding we have the right to vote until one of us was able to break through on the 7th of March, 1965. A 24-year-old John Lewis leads this march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And for having the strength and the courage to do what was right, not for himself and not just for people who looked like him, but for all of us and for every generation to follow. He was beaten down and nearly killed in the process. But thank God, the press, not the enemy of the people, but the greatest champion of this democracy, they were there to capture those images, to broadcast them across the country and around the globe. And it so shocked the conscience of America that it galvanized our government into action. Within 8 days, light speed in Washington, D.C., President Johnson convenes a joint session of Congress. And remember earlier I said that Alabama has always inspired Texas. Remember, he's the first president from the state of Texas, and he was watching what was happening in Alabama that day. And he said to the assembled members of Congress, as it was at Lexington and Concord, as it was at that courthouse in Appomattox, and he could have added, as it was on those beaches in Normandy in 1944, fighting fascism half the world away to defend this democracy here at home. So it is in 1965 that everyday Americans are willing to do what it takes, including laying down their lives so that this country will realize and fulfill its promise. All of us created equal, all of us to be treated equally under the law. By that summer, Johnson's able to sign the Voting Rights Act of 1965 into law, creating the first true multiracial democracy in American history, the very democracy under attack by Donald Trump today. Are we going to stand up and fight for that democracy? Are we going to follow the lead of John Lewis and the people of Alabama? It is who we are. It is what we're made of. We have overcome before, and it's not just ancient history. You remember in the first Trump term, a policy that he pioneered called family separation. And what that meant was, afraid for your life and the life of your young child, you traveled these 2,000 miles, literally the length of the Western Hemisphere, to bring her to safety and asylum and refuge in a country that is composed of asylum seekers and refugees from the world over. And just as you got here, having survived that journey, they literally take or tear that baby from your very arms, put her in foster care, and deport you back to El Salvador or Honduras or Guatemala or wherever you came from. Outraged at the injustice, everyday Americans stepped up. They spoke out. They stood to be counted, culminating in a protest in Tornillo, Texas on June 18th of 2018. Tornillo was where they had constructed a camp community for those kids who'd been separated from their parents. More than 1,000 of us showed up to bear witness, to testify to our fellow Americans just what was being done in our name. The president could not bear the outrage or the scrutiny or the backlash, and by June 20th, 2 days later, he rescinded family separation in America. The power of people works in this country, even against Donald Trump. In 1858, another time of division and polarization and crisis in this country, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech in which he said, "Public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed." Public sentiment is you. It is me. It is all of us listening to and talking with our friends, our neighbors, our classmates, our colleagues, complete strangers, to make sure they understand what is happening in this country right now. Building that power that will come back on this president and overcome this administration and replace it with something far better than we have today. Do not lose that hope. Do not turn your back on that power. Use it now at this moment of truth. Lincoln was talking about us. He was talking about these students at the University of Alabama. He was talking about folks who show up in places that others write off as too red, too Republican, too tough to fight in. You all didn't believe that. You showed up today because you know that this place counts. And so when we organize at the local level, just like we're doing today, when we attend these marches, when we hold these town hall meetings where the Republican member of Congress is too chicken shit to do their job and face the accountability of their constituents, we are building public sentiment against which nothing can survive. So remember, you have the power, and we are grateful that you brought that power here today in Tuscaloosa. Let's go out and share it with this country and win America back. Let's do it. Thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for having me. Gracias. Più adelante.